Coming to a YouTube channel near you.
Way, hello everybody, and welcome. I am Althea, and this is Spiritual Street Talk with Althea Jacob. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a hot one out there for most of us. Heat wave is going through the U.S., and thank you for joining us, and hopefully having a nice, cool evening talking about some topics of metaphysical interest to everybody. One of the things I noticed today is June the 19th, and it's actually a day that's in recent history that's now being called Juneteenth, and it is the celebration, apparently, of the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves once and for all in our country. And so it is sort of a day of independence. Hi, Maria. Sure, 1 second. And it's a day of great independence, and it's a time a time of reflection. You know, when we look at how far our country has come in such a relatively short time. And so that is just something to be aware of today. And I think it's important to realize that, you know, America has always been this shining beacon on the hill. That was part of the vision our founding fathers had for us. And the elimination of slavery was one of those last hurdles that had to have to be overcome in order for us to truly live up to that vision we held, right? Because certainly slavery of any peoples is unacceptable. And so that's there. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that since it is Thursday the 19th that we're having the show tonight. Welcome, Susan. Hi there. For those of you that are on the chat, if you do have a question, please put it in all caps in the chat so it'll jump out at me and I'll be able to see it as I'm kind of talking and going through all this. Also want to give a shout out to Grizz and to Mary. They are working so hard behind the scenes to really help all of us hosts and to make sure the programming is getting out there. So we all want to send them our love and our gratitude, because if it wasn't for them, we all wouldn't be here tonight doing what we're doing. The format of my show, for those of you who are new to it, is I usually talk a little bit about what's on my mind, what's been happening during the week. I've picked some angel cards and oracle cards and tarot cards to get messages for the entire group, and I usually share those. And the way that it works is it shouldn't matter whether you're listening live or whether you're tuning in tomorrow, next week, or next year. Whenever you are seeing or hearing this, hopefully the messages that come will ring true to you, give you some comfort, some guidance, some direction, some insight. So that's part of the goal there. And then after that, I usually kind of open up the floor to any questions that have come through. If there's something urgent, sometimes I'll jump to that and then swing back to the messages and other things we're doing. And usually the hour just goes flying by. For those of you also who are new, please do like and share and subscribe and do all those nice social media things that we love. It helps a lot as we get out there. It makes it a little easier for Grizz to do his job behind the scenes. So thanks. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Hey, Joanne, welcome. So anyway, what I was thinking about a lot this week, you know, there's an awful lot going on in the world today, right? And this past weekend, right? We had that big military parade in Washington, and we had protest marches all over the country, and it couldn't be any more obvious that there is so much contention and lack of harmony going on right now in our country. So it makes it even more important for all of us to do our part to be as tolerant and non-judgmental and as forgiving and loving as possible for all the people that are in our circles and all the people that we meet and encounter in our day, right? We need to shine our light and share our love and share our gifts and do our best to have a positive impact on the lives of every single person that we touch, regardless of their political leanings, their religious affiliations, or anything else, right? The color of their skin, it doesn't matter. We are all sons and daughters of God. We all are part of this wonderful creation that the source, the great creator, grand spirit, whoever you want to call and think of and conceptualize, this something greater than self that created all of us, right? We are all on the same boat here, folks. We are all on planet Earth together, trying to figure it out. You know, when I was younger, I got to travel extensively, both because I love to, and I did it in my free time, and also for my business, I traveled quite a bit. And I've been fortunate enough to travel to over 30 countries around the world and almost every one of the 50 states. And I'll tell you what, people are people, pretty similar all over the world. They want very similar things for themselves and their family. They want to feel like their life matters. They want their children and family to have food and shelter and education and an opportunity to have even more than they had when they were growing up. You know, it's amazing, you know, the sense of hospitality that's there when there aren't all these other circumstances that are clouding it out. I know there's also war raging with Israel and Iran right now, and you're like, wow, this poor Middle East is just going on. You know, it always seems like there's something going on, and the escalations here. And I know some people and pundits are saying, oh, it's going to be World War III if the U.S. gets involved, or, you know, if Russia gets involved, and you know what, guys, we can't spend a lot of emotional or mental capacity on these kind of world issues where we really don't have control, right? We might have influence by how we vote or how we raise our voices and share our points with our congressmen and our local officials and our elected officials. We can certainly share our votes, our thoughts. We can certainly picket and protest, and again, let our voices be heard. That's one of the beautiful things about living in this country. And we should not be in a freak out mode about all these things happening in the world. We should, as light bearers and light workers, be cultivating a sense of peace and calm and harmony and holding the vision and trying to manifest the outcome of peace, of everyone living in harmony, of whatever the best possible outcome can be. We don't want to be putting energy towards the thought of war because, remember, metaphysically speaking, where your thoughts go, energy flows. And in the scriptures, it tells us, as you think, so you are. So if you're constantly in this state of distress and thinking about how horrible things are, you're not helping to create a positive, loving world. You're adding more fuel onto the fire of the craziness that's out there, right? So we need to protect ourselves as much as we can, prepare ourselves as much as we can. You know, so if you live in an area where there's flash flooding, where it's prone, you know, have a go bag. You know, same thing for people that live where there's hurricanes, right? Where you might have to leave in a fairly short notice, right? And for those of you who live near tornadoes, tornado alley type places, it's really important to have a safe shelter set up. So you know, if those sirens go off, where are you going to run? Where are you going to go? So if we do what we can to prepare for whatever the quote unquote disaster or turn of events going to be, it helps us have a little bit more peace and calm. And we should be also projecting out, I'm never going to need this go bag. That if there is flooding, it's not going to touch me or my home. You know, if there is a tornado, it's not going to be by me. It's going to be by an empty field and hurt no one, right? Those are the things we hold on to. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out the way we try to manifest, and we have to deal with the consequences of the natural disasters that strike us, or in the case of some of these countries, the wars that strike them, right? So we should be sending our love, our light, our prayers, our best wishes for the most peaceful and best outcome possible in all the situations, right? That's part of our job. So that's what's been on my mind and heart a lot this week, as well as the reminder that we are so connected to spirit, and we have the ability to allow the Holy Spirit to part the veil, or allow our guides and angels to help us get messages. And those messages can sometimes be so uplifting and perfect timing for the recipients that we deliver those messages to. And so the more that we open ourselves up to be of service to our friends, our family, our neighbors, anyone that is in our sphere, anybody that comes across our path, the better off we are in learning how to bring those messages through. All right, so I want to share a little bit about the messages that came. And the very first one is very fitting with just what I've been thinking about. And it's universal love. And it says, open your heart to the world, and light will fill your life regardless of outcomes. Universal love is the essence of life. Embrace it in everything and everyone. And isn't that perfect? I actually didn't read the cards when I flipped them over. So that gives me a little tickle that's kind of like spirit stamping the seal of approval on what I was just saying to everybody, that it's our job not to get sucked into the drama and trauma and all the craziness that's happening out in the world. It's our job to remain loving and peaceful and shining a light and sharing our gifts and sharing love and putting the most positive impact and output that we can out into the world around us. The next card that I chose is an angel card that's called Choices. And it says, when you worry about decisions, it means that your mind is trying to control your life. And that results in choices that are made from your ego. And your angel guidance is to consider and evaluate all the options, then let go of your head and choose from your heart that which gives you the greatest joy and feels right. Make choices for the highest good. So that kind of falls into alignment with what we're saying as well, right? That we want to make sure that what we're doing matters and that we're doing the right things all the time. Okay, and then the last card that I chose, the angel card, is that of the ocean. And I flipped this one over and I was like, oh yeah, the ocean. I love the ocean, right? I live in Wisconsin. There's no ocean close by, but I love when I get a chance to travel and go to the ocean and listen to the waves and just sit, even stand there and let the waves lap at my feet a little bit, or watch the dolphins or the different wildlife that's swimming out in it. I do love the ocean. And it says here, the deep blue sea speaks to your soul, healing and soothing you. Even the act of imagining yourself dipping into its healing waters brings about the desired effect. Better yet, when you can, spend time physically near or at the ocean. Allow its power and beauty to wash away all your cares and concerns. So what's important here that is, I think that very first line is, even if I can't go to the ocean and you can't go to the ocean, you can imagine it. You can put on tapes. You can ask Alexa, if you have Alexa, to play the sound of ocean waves. There's all kinds of downloads and streaming things that you can get that have pictures of the sounds of the ocean. So you can still access the memories of how did it feel when you were there the last time. And you can bring some of that peaceful, healing, wonderful vibration into your life and into your home simply by remembering. Okay, the next three cards I chose were the tarot cards, and usually it's kind of like a past, present, future deal. So the past is the Knight of Pentacles. So this is the knight in shining armor. Everything's in balance. We're kind of going, we're moving and grooving. And then it brings us to something that knocks us off our feet. And this is the card of Nine of Swords. And this is the card of grieving and feeling overwhelmed with what's happening in the world and what's happening all around us. It's like, wow, I was on a roll. I'm moving, I'm grooving, everything's happening. And then it feels like the rug is pulled out from underneath us. How many times does this happen in our life? And what's required as we go forward, the card that I chose was strength. And this strength is both the strength and courage to figure out how do I get through this, but it's also the strength that comes in the vulnerability of asking for help and knowing what's appropriate. The last thing I'd like to share is from my book, Portal to Potential. This is a channeled book that came through me. I published it in a year ago, a little over a year ago in May. And this book is meant to be inspiration to encourage you, to help you feel empowered and to figure out what is your soul's purpose and to answer some of the questions that might help you become even more of the amazing person you're trying to become in the world. And I cracked it open to one of the pages and I wound up with a section here called, called Sacred Journey. And it says, what hallowed halls we traverse as we explore the universal mind. The fractals of consciousness swirl with delight as they create and recreate the patterns of our lives. Energy flows where consciousness goes, a truth more profound than you know. Be at peace and have fun as your spirit explores all your collective consciousness has done. So these are some of the messages, and I want to comment a little bit about the three cards, the progression from the night where everything is moving and grooving, we feel like we're on track, to something happens that kind of blindsides us. The world seems harsh. We're grieving and mourning the loss of a person, a job, the situation, what's happening. And what we need going forward is strength. I found out yesterday that a dear friend of mine I knew her husband had been sick, but I didn't know he passed last month. She's like, oh, weren't you on Facebook? And I'm like, no, I'm hardly ever on Facebook. And so she said, yeah, Michael died last month. And I was stunned for her and totally like, how do you comfort somebody, right? When a loss is so sudden. And like these three cards just remind me of what she's going through, right? She and her husband, things were rocking and rolling. They have an amazing life together. And then suddenly he's gone. And then she now is alone and has to figure out, where do I go from here? How is it even possible? It feels surreal, right? When death comes, when a loss of a loved one happens, whether it's through death or divorce or, death of anything, right? Sometimes a pet, a loved one, right? When it comes from out of the blue, it's like, yeah, we need that strength to carry on. And one of the things that helps us have strength is realizing two things. One was remembering the great memories, the positive love that we shared with that person, with that life, that being. But the other thing that's really important is when we get refocused on what is our purpose. Because if we're focused on our purpose, then it's a little bit easier to say, okay, I wish you were here by my side as I'm going through the work I need to do and developing the skills I need and serving and helping and sharing my light and shining my light and sharing my love and doing my thing out in the world. It's going to be a lot harder without you there, but at least it gives me something to get up for. It gives me that extra motivation that says, okay, this sucks, that now I'm alone and I don't have this partner or I don't have this loved one with me like I thought I would. And they would want me to continue. They would want me to be happy. They would want me to know they're okay and I'm going to be okay. That they're going to help and, pull strings from the heavens, so to speak. Right. So that's something that I think is important for us to realize no matter what, because it's so natural when we have negativity strike us, whether it's a real small personal thing or a worldwide thing, like we're seeing with some of the natural disasters and the wars that are out there, and the contention and disruptions that are out there, right? It's really easy to get sucked into the drama, the trauma, the feeling alone. And so coming together with like-minded people, tuning in to shows that will help to uplift you and remind you of the brilliant spirit that you are, and that you do have a purpose, and that you're not alone. Even if you feel alone right now, you're not alone. You have guides and angels around you that you may or may not feel. You have loved ones in spirit who have crossed over before you, who are cheering you on and doing their best to send positive energy your way, right? You have people in the physical world that are there for you to reach out to, whether they are friends or loved ones, or even just people that devote themselves to help a stranger who's going through a rough time. So there are resources out there. So please, if you are feeling overwhelmed by everything that you're seeing in the world right now, take a moment, take a breath, refocus your energy, and feel the love that is present, that is available for you. It's natural to have the pity parties. Trust me, when my husband asked me for a divorce, I was in such shock. I was like, what? How is this even possible? Right? It just totally blew my mind and shocked my world. And for quite a while, I was like, what? Right? This short-circuited me. And so I had to really work on not feeling alone, not feeling unworthy, not wondering what I did wrong. Why was I being punished? All the questions that are very natural to ask when we're going through a loss, or when bad things happen to good people. We try to make sense of it. And sometimes there is no sense. It's just free will, free choice, or fate. And things just happen. And then it's our job to figure out, how do I get back on my feet? How do I get back on track? And truly, it's just one decision at a time, one step at a time, one thought at a time, one action at a time. Little by little, we re-swizzle ourselves, we reshape ourselves, we get ourselves back on track, so that we are becoming more and more the person that we want to be and we're meant to be, in order to fulfill the measure of our creation, to fulfill the desires of our soul that want to be expressed, right? So these things are really important to look at. And then when things are going well, that's when we can make more progress, right? When things are going, not, I won't say badly, but when there's a lot of challenges and you feel like, oh my God, I'm in this quicksand again, then, those are the kinds of things that are important. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about that. And yes, Anne, hello. Yes, you can ask questions. Anybody who has questions on the chat, please do type your question in all caps so that I'll see them, and I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions I can. And if there is a specific topic that you would like me to talk about and share my insights or ask Spirit about, I am more than happy to do that as well. So I'm always watching the chat off to the side and seeing what pops in. So please do, if you have a question, type it in there and put it in the chat. Let's see. The other thing that's been on my mind and heart, because I haven't seen any questions yet, is what to do when people are coming to the decision about having to say goodbye to their pets. I have an older dog. His name is Flash. I think I've shown him on a couple of shows a few times. But lately his back legs are giving out a lot, and he's 13. So one of the things that happens, when our animals get older, is we have to really balance out what is their quality of life? Are they in pain? Are they having a hard time? And we, as the people that love them the most, need to be responsible in making the decision when it's time to say goodbye. And I tell pet owners all the time, you'll know. You trust your heart, trust your soul. You'll know when it's the right time. Okay, so I see a question that popped up here. Again, it's much easier for me to notice them if they're in all caps. So anyway, but Anne asks, may I ask some insight on the future of my relationship with Leo man, please? Okay. My question is, are you telling me he's a Leo, like astrological sign, or is his name Leo? Just makes a little bit of a difference there, but I'll just kind of tune in general, and you can clarify that when you get a second there, Anne. The relationship feels good. In general, I feel like it's a, gotcha. Thank you. So he is a Leo sign. It feels good to me. There are times where I do feel like there's an imbalance, where it seems like it's a little bit more about him and his happiness and his needs, a little bit more than it is about yours. But I feel like it brings you some joy, Anne, to make sure he's happy. And so it's worked so far. So one of the things you have to keep in mind is Leos with the sign of Leo, they can sometimes be a little bit, they like to be in the limelight, and they like things to be about them. And so it can sometimes be difficult. Communications can sometimes be strained. Sometimes, again, if you're not saying the things that they want to hear, sometimes they shut down. I do feel like there is potential for the relationship, the future of it, to come back around. But I do feel like there's an imbalance between the give and take. And you really have to decide, are you getting enough out of it where you feel fulfilled? And if not, then you be the one that says, okay, next. Okay. All right. Let's see here. I have another question. Barbara is asking here. Going in a different direction for a few medical issues. Does this feel right to you? So I'm presuming the question you're asking, Barbara, here is that you're trying some alternative things for your medical versus traditional. And does that feel right? So yeah, I think right now what's coming to your mind and heart, and what spirit has prompted you to do, Barbara, is leading you to different practitioners and different approaches to deal with medical issues. And that feels right to me, to listen to what those promptings are telling you and to give those alternatives a try. So yes, so that's a quick answer. So does that feel right to me? Yes, it feels like trying some of the alternatives that are coming to your mind to try, and that spirit's prompting you to do. Those will give you some more positive outcomes and lead you to even other things. Okay, another question here I have. Thank you for the caps there, Nilda. What does spirit need me to know about myself right now? That's a good question. All right. So, what does spirit want you to know about yourself right now? The first thing that I hear is stop being so hard on yourself. You are better than you give yourself credit for. You are truly loved. You are an exceptional daughter, and you need to own your power a little bit more and shine your light a little bit more, and also put yourself first more. I feel like you're tired, and Spirit's like, you need to get more rest. You need to have more joyful fun and creativity in your life. You're on the right track, and just basically be kinder and more loving to yourself. That's the loudest thing that I'm hearing from Spirit right now. If there's a more specific follow-on question you'd like to ask, feel free. Okay, we have here from Maria Amethyst Celentine. What a cool name, Maria. Okay. You are wondering what grade you feel. I will get. Okay, so I'm going to say this about that. I don't fortune tell, right? I can tune into the energy around you, and I can feel kind of like what you're feeling about it, and what the energy feels like, but I can't predict the future, right? What I feel like is that it's good but not great. So to me, what's good but not great, that feels more like a B to me. So that's where that comes in. But I also, one of the things that's interesting, there's certain kinds of questions when people are talking to intuitives or asking of Spirit. If you ask a question like, well, who will I marry? Spirit wants to come back to you and say, well, who do you want to marry? Right? If you ask the question, will I be wealthy in the future? Well, it depends, like, how hard are you willing to work and what risks you're willing to take? And are you going to put yourself out there and be in a position where that can happen, right? So they're different. And as far as the grade you get, well, you know how hard you worked, right, Maria? Did you do the very best you could? Did you hand in all the assignments? How did you do on the different tests? How did you do on any of the essays or assignments, right? So there shouldn't be a big question about something that you have a control to influence like that. Yeah, there's a sense of, with certain teachers, they can, like, there's some wiggle room. Do they give you the B or the A or the C, right? So I get that, right? It depends. And when you look at the whole thing, and if you were kind of all over the place, you got some A's on some tests and you got some C's on others and you got B's on some homework, right? So I think you want to also look at things as, don't give power over to psychics and say, oh, well, my psychic said this, or my reader said this, or my intuitive said that. It's like something like that, like the outcome of your hard work you should be pretty close to knowing for yourself, how did I do? Did you, like I said, did you give it your hardest? Did you, how did you do on the test and all of the interim things that lead to that final grade? So that would be, I just wanted to share a little bit about that. So the quick answer to your question is, I feel like you did good, but not great. And take more credit for you knowing how you're going to do, right? Because you put the work in, so you should sort of know. It's kind of like when the cop pulls you over and says, do you ever know how fast you were going? You know whether you were speeding or whether you were doing the speed limit or not, right? So there's that kind of like, yeah, I kind of sort of know. So anyway, that's what I want to say about that. Okay. All right. We have a follow-on question here from Nilda. So Nilda is looking for a sense of direction. Should I move away or should I continue to keep doing things for my girls? Okay. My first response from Spirit when I read, should you move away, was yes. And it's not a this or that. You'll still be able to do things for your girls, but you'll be able to do more for yourself if you move away. And Spirit wants you to be in a position where you can be living your best life, where you can be shining your light, your love, and really enjoying the hard worked fruits of your labor. In some ways, I'm hearing from spirit, it's your turn. When you get to a certain point in your life, it's kind of like you paid the price of admission. Let's think of like Disney or one of the theme parks, right? You paid the price of admission, and the tickets, they're not cheap, right? You got to put in a lot of work, hard work to earn that money. You get into the park, and now you figure out, what ride do I want to get on, right? And what do? You go for a ride, right? And you go on that line, and you wait and wait and wait, and you finally get up to the platform, and it's time for you to get on. Wouldn't it be really silly for you to be saying to everybody else, next? No, go ahead. You go next. You go next. You go next. Or I'm holding the space for my kids or my grandkids, and then they get on and you don't. That would be silly. And it would be really silly if you keep letting people on before you, and then the park closes and the ride shuts down and you never get a chance to get on it. So Spirit is saying, look, you paid your dues. Now is the time for you to ride the ride a little bit, to have more of a quality of life that you are wanting. All those back burner things that you had on your plate, time for you to enjoy those now. All those things on that bucket list, start knocking them off. Start really enjoying the quality of your life. You'll be able to still do things for your girls, right? You can invite them with you. You can send them things from afar. You can still be there to talk to them and give them advice and encouragement and let you know how much you love them. But I feel like if you are so geographically close to them, you get sucked into a lot more than you bargained for in some ways. You wind up offering to help and helping in such amazing ways, which are, a blessing to them, but it's also taking away from your ability to enjoy some of the joyful moments yourself. There's no rush to this. Spirit's going to help you, see what's right. But as you get the opportunity and something falls into place, like, wow, this seems like it's the perfect place to move to, the perfect opportunity, the place is perfect, it's within my budget, it's around other like-minded people, or it's closer to other friends or relatives that you haven't seen in a while. And it brings you different opportunities, perhaps for work or for play. I would be very open to see what Spirit presents to you. And when the time comes, seize that opportunity, answer that call to adventure and go get on that ride. Okay. That's what I'm feeling for that. All right. Any other questions anybody else has? Feel free to type them in there. And if there's follow-on questions, if something either didn't make sense, or you want me to clarify, or you want to clarify your question, feel free to type that as well. All right, let me pull that down here. All righty. All right. The other thing that I really want to remind people, if you're listening here, and it kind of came in a little bit there in that information for Nilda. And by the way, when I'm doing readings or kind of tuning in for people, know that a lot of times the answers that come are going to have a kernel of truth for you as well that's listening to it. So I'm going to take what just came up for Nilda there about that. After you've paid the price of admission, you've paid the dues, it's time to get on the ride and ride the ride. I think that is a really important message to get out to a lot of people. So many of us, especially those of us who were raised to be the caretakers, the givers, we love to help others. We derived our joy from making other people happy. As we get older, it's really important that we start to develop the boundaries where we still have the choices. We're not just so in the habit of taking our money and giving it to our kids or our grandkids, or taking our things and giving it away to whoever needs it. And then when we need it, oops, not there, right? I know somebody that worked really hard their whole life, and they had some money in an account that was their travel fund. And their desire when they retired was that they would be able to travel, and they were going to use money from that fund. They worked their whole life to save up that money so that once they retired, they could see the world, right? That was what it was meant for. And I remember them telling me, oh yeah, I was going to go to Italy, but my kids needed a new car, and this one needed a new refrigerator, and this one needed a new whatever. And I was like, wait, stop. When you were their age and you needed this stuff, was your mom just handing it to you? No, you had to work for it. You had to be resilient. You had to figure it out. You worked so hard for that money so that you could have this amazing experience of traveling later on in your life. And now that money's gone because you gave it to them. Now, if it's an emergency, if it's something really urgent and that's the only option there is, okay, maybe you say, well, all right, I'll give and take. I asked her, I said, well, are you expecting them to pay you back so you can take those trips later? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. They're having a hard time. And I just was like, what? Okay, so you can rescue somebody in an emergency for sure, but you want to make sure they pay you back over time so that in her case, she can have what she worked her whole life to do and not say, oh, well, I guess I never get to see Italy because, my kids had trouble and, oh, well, right? When you work hard your whole life, it's really important, that you get what you deserve too. You shouldn't have to give up on your dreams because somebody else had bad planning, or they squandered money away on things that, you never would have, because you saved and pinched your pennies and saved for your future. And they weren't that way. And so they didn't have an emergency fund, or they didn't have other resources. So, it's a real balance that we have to do when we're out there of making sure we're there for each other and for our loved ones, but also that we're there for ourselves, and that we understand that we've paid our dues. We've paid the price of admission. It's okay for us, and it's righteous for us to get on the ride and for us to enjoy what we worked so hard for, right? And I think it's too easy for a lot of people to take advantage of folks that just have always been generous their whole life, and they're like, oh yeah, well, help me. And then those people are like, well, who's there for me, right? When do I get to have my fun that I've always wanted? So have a little bit of a balance in what you're doing there, and have it be okay to say no once in a while. Okay, so we have another question here, and this is from Joanne Stewart, and she is asking, could she have a general reading? Okay. So when you ask for a general reading, I usually just ask Spirit, what's the most important thing that Joanne needs to know right now? And actually for you, I feel like it is, I'm hearing that it's really important for you to stay focused and to persevere a little bit more. I feel from Spirit that you get distracted and you get frustrated because you're not accomplishing as much as you were hoping to accomplish. And Spirit saying, if you can find ways to stay more focused, kind of eyes on the prize, and keep making sure you re-ask the questions of, okay, is this decision, is this action, is this going to help me get closer to what I'm trying to manifest? Is this helping me become the best possible version of myself that it possibly can? Or is this more of a distraction or taking me off that path? That would be very helpful to you. I feel like you have a bunch of spiritual gifts that you've kind of dabbled with, and you're trying to figure out like, well, which one is really my strongest one? Just keep practicing with them, keep experimenting, have that playful curiosity, and one of them will really click for you. And that's the one you want to lean into a little bit more. And if you do have a more detailed follow on Joanne, feel free to put that in the text as well. Okay. All right. And then Nilda says here, my oldest daughter lives with and the other has 2 girls. I babysit the 14th baby and also see, right. Okay. Yeah. So that's right. So that's part of what I was feeling there with them really leaning on you and relying on you. And part of it, if you're away, you can still be in touch with them, but they're going to have to learn the resiliency and resourcefulness and find other people to help them. I'll tell you, you'll feel a sense, much more gratitude from them when the helping isn't just the normal. It's almost like it's become your job, it feels like. And so there's some appreciation, of course, but it's also, it's not supposed to be your job right now, right? It's it's a love gesture. It's from your heart, how it started. It's noble that you want to help out and be there for them. And at times it's joyful, for you to be around your grandkids, of course. And it's still time for you to get on the ride. What things are you not doing for yourself because you're so busy doing it for them? What money are you giving to them versus spending on things that you've been saving up for and wanting for you, right? It becomes like expected and taken for granted. It can very often when it's just the norm. And now it's like, oh, it's your job. And of course you're going to be there to do it and watch them. And it's like, no. This is, you have your whole life. You did not sign up to raise those children. You raised your kids already. Now it's their turn to raise their kids and to figure it out. And if they're single moms, well, there was choices that led to that situation of them being a single mom, right? And there's all kinds of other resources that are out there for single moms, right? So it doesn't always have to fall back onto mom or grandma. So it's not selfish for you to think about moving away. It's not like you're moving to avoid them. You're moving because you felt called to go to that area. And it's also maybe like, I always thought that when I got older and retired, I would move south to where it's warmer, or move to a different city where there's other friends and family or other relatives that are around, right? So it's not fair for you to give more weight to your daughter's happiness than to your own happiness, right? There should be an equality there, all right? And it's not about, are you loving them enough? Of course you love them, but it's also, this is now time for you. And Nilda just chimed in here, and thank you for sharing that. And you're right? We love them dearly, but it is time for you to get on the ride. Okay, and Joanne jumped in here. Right. So she said, Joanne says, it's maddening. I went from walking to then a wheelchair, and I love to garden. And that you wind up having to babysit for people, and that it's become expected, but it's not what you signed up for. Yep. And so one of the things that we have to have the courage to do when we have people that we love who have leaned on us more than just in the short term, right? A short-term emergency of, hey, I need you to help here, that's one thing. But expecting you to take it on as a full-time responsibility, that's not cool, all right? And it's not about loving or not loving, and it's not about them, well, maybe it is about them manipulating, right? Trying to manipulate or guilt you into it somehow. There should be a ton of gratitude and appreciation expressed, And they should be the ones that are actively trying to figure out, how can I find another way of doing this? Because this isn't fair to mom, right? If my mom was still alive, there's no way if I had kids that I'd be like, hey, mom, I need you to watch them every day. No, it might be, mom, can you watch them on this one day? Or can they have Nana camp for 2 weeks while I go on vacation for my first vacation and forever? And if she says, yes, thank you so much, let them watch the kids. And I make sure I would bring her back some really nice presents from wherever I went, so that she knows I really appreciate it, right? But when it becomes the expected, when it becomes all of a sudden like, wait, how did this become my responsibility? You really do need to have the courage to have the talk and to very slowly extricate yourself from that. So you might have to start by saying, you know what? I can't do this 24/7. I can't do this anymore every day of the week. You're going to need to find somebody else to help, and start weaning yourself off and say, well, maybe I can still do weekends, or maybe I can still do Mondays, or pick a day, and I can still help a little bit. But to be the primary caregiver, when that was not what you signed up for, that's very unfair. And, there's some there's some situations where it lands in your lap and you're like, okay, my daughter gets sent away to jail for drug abuse, and the 2 children, her 2 kids, wind up coming to live with me because I didn't want to put them into social services and into a foster home. Well, that's a choice. That's a hard choice. And maybe your daughter would realize the consequences of her actions and choices more if her kids wound up in a foster home versus Nana taking care of them. Because she might be more motivated to get the help she needs and make the change when she comes out of the institution, if she has to work hard to get her children back, not just pick them up from grandma who's been watching them. So sometimes it's really hard for us to have that tough love stance and say no or not now to the people that we love, to help force them to be more accountable for their actions, and to have them have to deal directly with the consequences of their choices and what's gone on. As we love who we love, and we don't want them to suffer. And we shouldn't be the ones that always have to come to the rescue and save them, when sometimes the situation that they need saving from is from their own creation. They made the mess, right? I think we've talked about this once before. There's a big difference between if your daughter is lying on the couch and she's sick with the flu and she throws up on the floor. It's okay for you to clean up that mess and tend to your daughter. She's sick. She didn't mean to throw up. It's just part of being sick. But if your daughter went out on a drinking binge and she has the spins and she's laying on your couch and she throws up on your floor, don't you dare clean up that mess. You wait for her to sober up in the morning, and you hand her the bucket and the scrub brush, and you tell her, clean up that mess. And if you can't get the stain under the rug, you're buying me a new rug. And while she's down there scrubbing the day-old, half-dried, disgusting mess, she'll have the epiphany of, oh, I have a problem. I need help. But if you cleaned up that mess in that second scenario, when she was passed out and she wakes up in the morning and she's like, oh man, oh, my head hurts. And you like bring her an aspirin and a glass of water and, oh, there, and make it seem like it's totally fine that she went on this drinking binge and made a mess all over your house. And she doesn't even know about it, let alone have to be responsible to help clean up her own mess. You're not doing her any favors. You're actually depriving her of a lesson. And it's hard to think of it that way when it's somebody that you love. But it's important to recognize, are we depriving somebody of the lessons that they need? Are we doing it for them so they're not learning how to do it for themselves? And is it a righteous do? Is it something I'm supposed to be doing? Or is it something I'm really not, and I'm stepping over bounds just because it's the easiest thing? Let's not rock the boat. You know what? Some boats need to be rocked and should be rocked. People need to wake up, right? So that said, we shine our light, we share our love, we share our gifts, we do our best to have a positive impact on the lives of those around us as we are trying to figure out for ourselves how to be the best possible versions of ourselves that we can be, how we can fulfill the longings of our soul that want to be expressed. At the end of the day, you want to know you had a positive impact. You created a legacy of love and goodness and positivity through your words, through your actions, through your deeds, and that people are better off for having interacted with you, from having heard your messages, from having been in your world and in your life. If they're not better off because you always carried them and they never learned how to walk because you always carried them, you wind up with a bad back and they wind up not knowing how to walk, you're not really helping them, right? And yeah, I know it's so hard in the moment. Trust me, I had a family member who was a drug addict and a alcoholic. And there'd be times where he would beg me for money for food. And I would be like, yeah, that's not for food. I'll go to the grocery store with you and I'll buy you food, or I'll have you over for dinner and cook you a meal, but I'm not giving you $20 because I know it's not going for food, right? But it's hard to say no when they're so convincing and they're so pleading and, oh yeah, no, it's different this time. Our hearts ache when we have to say no, when our intuition is telling us they need to figure this out on their own. They need to get help. They need to hit bottom so that they can learn to be resilient, because you're not always going to be there to catch them when they fall. They're going to have to learn to be in balance on their own, right? All of that, those are things to think about out there. But as you do so, when you do pay that price of admission, go ride the ride, have the fun. Share your love, folks. Have a great week. Gosh, it's been an hour again. Thank you so much for your questions, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I do hope that what's come through gives you some comfort, some insight, some upliftment. Turn to spirit, open up to the promptings that come to you. Trust your intuition. And remember, intuition is the coherence of your mind, your heart, and your gut. God gave us a brain for a reason, so that we'd think, a heart for a reason, so that we'd have compassion and feeling, a gut for a reason, so that we would know what's right and wrong to do in every moment. So let those three partner together, and that will help you as you get through this next week. And I look forward to next week and hope that you'll tune in, tell your friends about us. And this is Althea signing off from Spiritual Street Talk with Althea. I love you all. I'm so grateful you spent the time with me today. And whenever you're listening in, have a great one. God bless and take care. Bye now. And once again, I'm working on the techie stuff. I'm finding it. All right, y'all. Bye now.
channel near